Wait till you see this. It is so awesome. Today we're gonna start the first batch of seeds for the season. I'm trying out some new seed trays and doing some winter sowing. Plus, we received a surprise package from a viewer. Hi, it's Steph. Welcome back to my basement. If you've been here for the last couple of seasons, you know that means it is seed starting time. And it is now the end of January, and I'm going to be starting some flowers that are going to be blooming earlier in the season, in the spring. So these are all cool weather flowers. I will be doing a mix of some that I will be starting in some seed trays under grow lights, and I also have some that I'm going to be starting using the winter sowing method. Now, I have done several seed starting videos here on my channel, and as well as winter sowing videos. So I have a whole playlist that I can link below if you're new to the process of either starting seeds indoors or winter sowing, which winter sowing is a great method to start off because you don't need any equipment, no grow lights. You don't have to have indoor space to grow them. You just make a mini greenhouse out of a recycled bottle or even like a salad or a spinach container. You put in your soil, your seeds, and you put them outside and let Mother Nature take care of them. So it's really a great process, and after initial setup, it's pretty hands-off unless you've had a stretch of really dry weather. Otherwise, you rely on the snow and the rain to keep them watered and growing until it is time to plant them out in the garden. But because I've done both over the years, there are some flowers that I've realized that need a little bit of a head start and should be started indoors, at least in my experience, and there are some that I can put outside and let them do their thing in winter sowing. I started off this morning by taking some inventory of the seeds I already had on hand and making a list of the things that I want to start growing now. And I did already have quite a few of them left over from last year, so that was good. But I recently ordered a few seeds that I knew I wanted to get started earlier in the season. If you are newer to growing seeds, or maybe you've been growing them for a while, just a quick refresher that anything that you need to know about the seed that you're growing is usually going to be marked on the back of the seed packet. So if you take a look at the back of any seed packet of the flowers that you're interested in, they will usually tell you how many weeks that plant needs to go from seed to bloom. Some cases it's anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. And so depending on how many weeks it needs is when you're going to count backwards and start your seeds. You can Google all of this. What is your growing zone for gardening? When is your last frost date expected to be? And then you just get out a calendar and look at your seed pack and count backwards to give you more or less a starting point of when you should begin those seeds. Here are the flowers that I'm starting today. All of these are cool weather annuals. So Alyssum, this variety is called Carpet of Snow, and it's a really pretty white one. Dusty Miller New Look, which is one that I grew for the first time last year, Dusty Miller. It's really beautiful, has large leaves. In fact, I have one still here in my basement that I'm overwintering, and I will show that to you to see what it looks like. So I'll be starting those. Pansy Black Devil. I started these last year, and it was the first time that I've grown pansies. Now, I will be honest, this one I'm probably about a month late to start. I should have probably started my pansies in December because they did take a really long time to bloom. And pansies are one that will do really well in the cool weather. They will peter out in the summer, but if you can keep them in a shady spot and just cool enough to keep them happy, they will continue to live through the fall. And then when the weather cools off again, they will do beautifully. So this one was a really beautiful dark black one. It's actually a really deep violet purple, but has a black hint to it. Very pretty. And for the first time this year, I will be growing some violas. Again, another one that I probably should have started in December, but when we get busy with the holidays, it's how it goes. So we'll start them now at the end of January and see how that works out. Forget-me-nots. Now this one can be a little controversial because forget-me-nots have a reputation for being a little bit invasive, but I'm actually pretty excited to try growing it because I think those tiny blue flowers will be a really pretty companion to some of the spring blooms in my garden. So we're gonna go ahead and give this one a shot. Now because this one is pretty heavy self-seeder, I'm going to say that this one is on the cusp of being a perennial. Yeah, in fact, on the back of the seed packet, it does say attracts pollinators and perennial and USDA growing zones 3 through 8, and I'm here in a 6B 7A, so this would be considered a perennial, and it is deer resistant, which is great because I do deal with lots of deer. And then Madam Butterfly Snapdragons. Now snapdragons are one that I did grow last year. I've had quite a few years of growing snapdragons, and I've learned a few things. I find that they also need to be started pretty early in order to get those spring blooms, because if you start them, like even with winter sowing, they didn't work out well for me because they would only start germinating spring when the weather warmed up. And at that point, it starts getting too warm for snapdragons and they would stunt their growth, and I never enjoyed the blooms. So I have learned over the last several years that snapdragons are one that do better started early indoors and then start to transition them outdoors once the spring hits. So at some point around March, you would start hardening them off and acclimating them to the outdoor temperatures, and then they could be planted out really early. Very similar to these other spring cool weather flowers that I will be growing, such as the Love in a Mist and Bachelor Buttons. So I have two varieties of Love in a Mist here, also known as Nigella, and they are Mulberry Rose and Miss Jekyll. I also have some Larkspur. This is another one that needs to be started early and loves cool weather. And this variety is called the Giant Imperial. And the Bachelor Buttons, which is this variety, the classic artistic mix. So really beautiful blue flower for the spring. They come in different shades. They even come in pinks and whites. And this one is also known as Cornflower. And Canterbury Bells, which the packet here is listed as perennial, but everything that I've read on Canterbury Bells says that they are a biennial. And I would agree with that because I've grown quite a few foxgloves last several years. And what I have found with foxgloves, most of the varieties, there are a couple that will be labeled as bloom the first season. In fact, I had some last year, the Dalmatian Peach, which were gorgeous, and I did grow those and they bloomed in the first year, which was wonderful. And they're also shorter in stature. But most of the taller foxgloves, you will start them from seed in the first year. They will grow all of their roots and all of their foliage, and then you will get those beautiful tall bloom spikes in year 2. So Canterbury Bells, when I started these last year using the winter sowing method, I got probably about a dozen of the seeds to germinate. I ended up with about 9 plants after all said and done because, you know, sometimes you lose a couple to whatever slugs, etc. And I did plant them out in the garden in the fall. So I didn't get any blooms out of them. They pretty much just worked on root development and establishing the little rosette of foliage. So I am expecting to get some beautiful Canterbury Bell blooms this year. I don't have as many plants as I had wanted, but we're going to see what they look like. I've also read that deer like them, so I planted them further back in the bed in hopes they can't really get to them, but I will keep you posted on how that works out. So sometimes you have to be wary of what the seed packet says. Always a great idea to just go to Google to research a little bit on any type of seed or plant that you're trying to grow. So these here are going to be grown using the winter sowing method. And I will show you again once I'm making the containers. And these here, I am going to be using trays to grow them under grow lights. When it comes to trays, I showed you last year that I had, around my birthday, which is in February, I had treated myself to some of these burpee trays, which I really like. I like that they have this silicone bottom that is really easy to push your seedlings out of with minimal disturbance to the roots. They're pretty lightweight, being plastic, they're easy to wash and maintain, and they're also stackable, which makes it great to put them away without taking too much space in storage. The one thing that I don't like about them, which is not even a big deal, is that they don't have a humidity dome. You can use saran wrap as your humidity dome because, like I said, you only need them for a couple of days. Once you start seeing those seeds sprout, you remove the saran wrap, and you can reuse it if you place it carefully. You can reuse it throughout that season to grow other seedlings. So that is the burpee trays. But as you know, if you've been around my channel for a little while, after we did our raised bed garden renovation last season, Vigo invited me to be an ambassador, and they had sent me a couple of things throughout the season. They had sent me a couple of retractable hoses, which have been great, a couple of hori horis, which actually I even gifted some to a giveaway that we had here on the channel to some viewers. And recently, they just sent out some of their seed trays for me to try. And they are pretty sturdy looking. Let me show them to you. So these come in 3 different sizes. And this one here has the 1x1 cell. They are a really durable plastic material, it feels like. They feel pretty solid. And they do come with a humidity dome. And what I think is really cool about these, and they also have this 10x20 tray to hold your water at the bottom and to hold all of your cell packs. But they have this chamber in the top of the lid that is an irrigation chamber. And so you would fill this with water, and there is an opening at the bottom where the water would spill into this center cell here. and it would disperse it into all of the separate cells where you have your seedlings growing. So I think that is really cool. So this one here is a tray of 8 of the 1x1 cells. They also have this as an option, which comes with 4 of the 2.5 by 2.5 cells, which are the larger ones, 4 of the smaller 1x1s. So if you wanted a mix to try out, this would be a great one to start with, because you can start your seedlings in the 1x1, and once you need to bump them up to the next size, you can move them up to the 2.5 by 2.5. So I would say this is a great option for a starter pack. And the third option is a jumbo, and this one comes with all of the seed packs, 8 of them, in the 2.5 by 2.5 size. When it comes to seed starting, you have 2 options when it comes to soil, and it's going to depend on what method you're using to start your seeds. Seed starting mix is a great option for any seeds that you're starting indoors under grow lights or even in a greenhouse in these small cell packs, because seed starting soil is specially formulated to be very lightweight and to have just enough nutrients to germinate that seed and to start the roots growing. Once they are ready to come out of these cell packs, they will be transplanted into a larger pot, and at that point, you're going to give it some potting soil to provide all the nutrition it needs to keep it happily growing. Now, when it comes to winter sowing, you are going to use potting soil, not seed starting mix. You use potting soil in your winter sowing containers because you set these up with the soil, you put your seeds in, and you put them outside, and they're going to do their germinating and their growing in that container the whole time until it is ready to be planted out in the garden. So for that reason, it needs to have all of the nutrition that it needs to germinate and grow in this container, so you would use potting mix. Every January, I get really excited about starting seeds. I go through my inventory of seeds, decide what I want to start, which seeds I need to order, and come up with a plan. From filling my trays and winter sowing bottles with soil to the sowing of these tiny little seeds that hold the promise of a beautiful bloom. I just think it's a process that I will never tire of, and I just really love it. But one thing that I am going to do different this year is I'm not going to start more seeds or plants than I think I will need, because it becomes a lot to manage. And I do love to share plants with friends and other gardeners, but you really only need a couple of extras to share. And what happens is when you start your plants in these little cell trays and you think they're not going to take up a lot of room, but you will have to pot these up into larger pots and containers. And when that happens, you very quickly run out of space under grow lights, especially when you have to start hardening them off. It becomes a lot of plants to manage, to bring in and out every day to acclimate them. So for that reason, I decided that this year I'm going to do better. I am not going to sow a crazy amount of plants. I'm going to just grow what I think I'll need and a couple of extras in case things die. And if there's something that I really like, I will plan on growing more of that plant next year. So let me know, are you a chronic overseeder too? And what have you done in the past to combat the urge to want to start too many seeds? And one of the plants that I did start last year but never made it into the ground were the forget-me-nots. So I am going to grow them again this year. Now what happened was I had grown too many plants and left the tray on my back patio wall, and it got too hot and too dry and the summer got busy. So the forget-me-nots got forgotten. But I am starting them again, and I promise not to do that and to get them into the ground this time, which is why I'm also only growing the amount of plants that I can manage. Now moving on to my winter sowing, the first thing that I did was prep all of my bottles. I find that prepping all of the bottles ahead of time just makes the process go a lot faster. So I make the drain holes, I will cut the bottles and leave enough intact to make a hinge, which helps when closing and taping up your bottles. I will then moisten my soil in some kind of bucket or container, and I find that that makes it a lot faster to just sort of work like an assembly line. And then once I'm done filling my containers, I will then put all my seeds in them. The tags, really important, not to forget to tag inside the container, as well as labeling the tape on the outside. So if one of the tags goes missing, you still know what you have in that container. Now, some of the plants that I started in winter sowing in this round were things that I did start in the fall as well. I had shared a video with you back in the fall where I was trying the Lisa Mason Ziegler Cool Flower method. And I had just bought the book a little bit later in the summer, maybe in the early fall. So by the time I got around to starting some of the plants like the bachelor's buttons, the Nigella, it was a little bit late. But I did get some really small plant starts that I did plant out in my raised bed garden. Now I will see if they survive into the spring, but if not, I wanted to be sure to start some extra plants with this winter sowing method just to make sure that I get to enjoy some of those blooms this season. Now, as I'm prepping these winter sowing containers, I wanted to share with you a little trick. If you have a plant variety that maybe you have 2 types of and you don't think you'll need the whole container for just one plant, go ahead and divide it out. Here I'm just using some plant tags to sort of create a divider in the middle of my winter sowing container, and I'm going to sow 2 kinds of Love in a Mist, also known as Nigella. So I tagged each side so that I know what variety is growing where, but this is a way that you can make more use out of your containers, either if you're limited on containers or you maybe just want to try a few seeds of each variety. This works really well. So tell me, friends, have you started any seeds yet this year? And is there something new to you or something you're really excited to grow this year? And what's your preferred method to seed start? Is it under grow lights, or perhaps it's using the winter sowing method, or maybe you like to wait until spring and grow things directly outside in the garden? There's one thing that's for sure. Growing seeds in the winter really does get us looking forward to spring, and it's a great way to pass those last few winter days. We are almost there, friends. It is almost spring. I'm all done sowing my first batch of seeds for the season, and it felt really good to get back in here working with soil and with seeds. I had a really great morning. I did end up finding a couple of extra packs of poppies that were from last year that I did sow as well. They were the giant double cream peony and the black peony poppy. So I put those in a winter sowing container, and they are all out in the garden. Now, there were a couple of more observations that I made when working with these new Vigo seed starting cells, and that was that they actually have these cutouts on the side that I hadn't noticed before, but these are actually for air pruning, which is awesome. Air pruning is similar to what you get when you do soil blocks. It's exposing the roots to air so that they will grow stronger, healthier root systems. Usually you get some bigger plants as well during that process, and the plants are more disease resistant and less likely to experience transplant shock when you put them out in the garden, which is excellent. They're also really thick, high quality plastic that seem like they're built to last. I put them to the test by standing on top of one of these seed cells, and they held up to my weight, so that's telling you something. And I also really like that they're stackable, because storing them in the winter, I want to make sure that they don't take up a lot of space. So I went ahead and tested the stackability of them, and look at this, they get pretty compact. So I'll be able to stack these humidity domes as well as the cell packs and the trays to take up less space. So I am really happy with the way that these are looking, and I think they're going to be really great long term. So if you're in the market and you're looking for some seed starting supplies, I would recommend checking these out. I will leave the link down below, and usually they have sales and promo codes going on that you can check out as well. And we received some mail from a viewer, and this week I had gotten a notification that I had some mail in my P.O. box, so I went to pick it up, and it was a wonderful surprise. Let me show you. Wait till you see this. It is so awesome. This was sent to us by Sunshine in Illinois, and it is a beautiful birdhouse that was made by her husband, who is clearly a very skilled craftsman because this is such high quality. He used the fence pickets, a cedar fence picket that their neighbor no longer needed, to build this for us. And there's actually even a clean out door in the back. Look at this. So cool. And Sunshine told me that she was looking for an old license plate that would say Massachusetts, which is where we're from, in her grandfather's barn, because I think he might collect them. But when she couldn't find one, she had one made, and it says Hooked and Rooted on it. How fun is that? So thoughtful. And I absolutely love it. I don't even want to put it outside because I don't want it to get ruined. So tell me what you all think. Should I put it out in the garden, or should I keep it indoors? Sunshine, thank you so very much for this. And she also sent me a letter which explained how this was made, and along with that, a recipe. She said that she enjoyed our last episode of Hooked and Rooted where I had shared a recipe for pot roast. She said it was amazing, and sent us a recipe to try of white bean soup with bacon and herbs. This was so thoughtful. I am actually going to try this really soon because we do love to have soups in the winter, and we're always looking for new soup recipes. And that's not all. She also sent us some treats for Rocco. Rocco is our pup. We have an Italian Greyhound. He's going to be 7 this year, and he often makes an appearance in our Hooked and Rooted at Home episodes. And there has never been a treat that Rocco has not liked. So thank you so much for thinking of him, and we are going to go ahead and give him one, and we'll share the footage with you all. But I definitely have some amazing viewers. Over the last couple of years, I have gotten some birthday cards, Christmas cards. I've even been sent packs of seeds and this lovely birdhouse. So thank you all so very much for your kindness and all of your comments and for watching our videos. I appreciate you more than you know. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Rocco, do you want more? Oh, you're giving your paw all the tricks. Good boys. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button. And please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.